Hi, Stephen here for the Idiot Quilter, and here's another interview in my series of interviews with subscribers. Enjoy.
Okay.
Okay, so today on subscriber interview, we have Teresa. Do you say your last name as DeJong or
It depends who I'm talking to.
okay,
I
well,
grew
why
up
don't you
I grew up calling it DeJong because
DeJong?
my parents anglicized it when
Oh,
they
okay.
first immigrated. But in the meantime, my son went to a school where there were other kids with the same last name and they called it DeJong, which
DeJong,
is the
okay.
Dutch way.
Yeah,
So I
I
pretty
know.
much answer to both.
Okay, well, for this interview, we're just going to call you Teresa, and that'll solve the problem.
Fair enough.
So, okay, so let's get started. So, we already know your name, but I want you to say your name again. And where are you located, Teresa?
Okay, I'm Teresa DeYoung and I'm located in London, Ontario.
Oh, okay. So you're a fellow Canadian, an
Yep.
Ontarian, and that's nice. I always like to have Canadian people on here. So that's wonderful. So, how long have you been quilting and or sewing?
Oh my gosh. Um, 50 years plus.
Oh, so you started very young.
Yeah, well, oh, gee, thanks. My mom taught me when I was about 7 or 8, and I think it was out of frustration because being one of 5 kids, she got tired of sewing my Barbie clothes. So she taught me how to make my own.
Okay. Were you the only girl in the family or?
No, but I am the oldest girl.
Oh, okay.
I had two much younger sisters, so they were just babes at the time.
Okay. So they experimented on you, in other words.
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
the feeling. I'm the oldest too. So yeah, we're the guinea pigs. You know, all the mistakes they make with us, they make up for it on the younger ones. Okay,
No
so
kidding.
50 years plus. That's great. And so how did you get started? And I think you've already kind of answered that, but
Yeah. Well, using scraps, I also grew up watching my mom sew all the time.
hmm,
She used to take the Woolworths bags and cut them and open them up and draw
hmm,
a pattern out on those and sew clothes for us. Um, there were several times that my sisters and I would all wear the same outfit
hmm,
because that fabric was on sale. So
yeah.
all three of us wore the same thing.
Yeah.
But watching her do that, it prompted me to sew as well, being mom's mini me, right? I
Hmm,
took on the same hobbies as she had. And when it came to grade 7, grade 8 in school, I'm still of the vintage that our kids, we were shipped off to a regional school once a week for the girls to learn home ec and the boys to learn shop.
hmm.
And that's where I learned more about sewing and a little bit about cooking.
Right.
I didn't follow that up in high school. I took shop instead.
See, I would have liked to have done the other way around. I sucked in shop. I want to take home ec, but they wouldn't let me take that. They wouldn't let the boys in
Yeah.
those days. That was the way it was. So yeah, and my mother sewed as well, but she didn't sew a lot, and I think she actually hated sewing. So I was more influenced by my grandmothers. And that wasn't until later in my life because I really didn't have any desire to sew until I found quilting. But anyways, that's interesting. So you've already mentioned your mother was an influence. Was there anybody else in your family that was an influence?
Well, my grandmother too. I have my grandmother's old hand crank singer
How nice.
in the bentwood case. It still sews, and it's my prized possession.
Yeah, it would be. In fact, my mother had a treadle machine that was her grandmother's, I think. And that's what my mother sewed on at home. But when my father passed away, when we moved my mother out of her house and that, um, we gave that away to a junk dealer, and I could kick myself because that was before I got into quilting, and I really didn't understand the value of that machine. It did have a broken cast iron leg on it, but I'm sure I could have gotten that repaired.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really regret giving that up, but it's nice that you had yours.
Well,
So
many machines have come and gone through my place, but that one, that's got
that's
a
a
place of
keeper.
honor.
Yep, yep, it should have too. Okay, so that takes us to What's your favorite creation to date and why? Behind you. Okay, tell us about it. Tell us about it.
This is my favorite quilt that I ever made. It's also one that I kept. Most of my quilts I made to give as gifts. I
Right.
have 11 nieces and nephews and a handful of great nieces and nephews. So over the years, I've made them all a quilt when they've gone off to college or off to their life. And now I've run out of them. So this one I made several years ago, and it's all out of scraps. It took me a while because each
Yeah.
5-inch block has 25 pieces.
I was going to say that one looks like an immense time
Yeah.
user.
Yeah, it's not my own pattern. It's a purchased pattern. I think it was called When You See This. I'm not sure. About the only thing that I changed was the border. I made it less busy and I did a scalloped edge around the border.
Yeah, it's a beautiful quilt.
Well,
it really is. And you may have said this already, but what size is that?
This is a queen.
A queen, yeah. Yeah, that took you some time with all those little pieces. I can see that.
Yeah.
But it is a beautiful quilt. And so, yep, definitely.
It's one of the first ones that I had to lay it out on the floor and move different blocks around in order to finalize what went where.
Right.
Yep. And I had to look at it a few times and nope, all the blues concentrated in that corner. I got to move that. So,
yeah.
And then to pick it up and actually sew it in the same order, I did move things around a little bit.
Yeah, well, that happens. And so, yeah, that definitely a keeper for sure. Unlike you, I've only given away one of my quilts and I've got to let them go fly away from the nest soon. Now, I've got nephews and nieces that need quilts too, so I have to give them to them. I'm just waiting for when I was hoping they'd approach me for one, because you can give quilts to some people, but they don't appreciate them,
I was really surprised how well they were received.
Well, that's
especially
good.
My nephews, that, maybe they never had a blanket that was warm. I don't know.
Yeah.
But each of them, they were effervescent in how thankful they were for them. And that, of course, gives you the gumption to make another one.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So, okay. So then what type of quilter would you describe yourself as? Traditional or modern or something in between or versatile?
Oh, good grief. A little bit of both, I think. If I pick up a pattern, I tend to go for a traditional style. But if I'm coming up with something on my own, it tends to be more of a modern thing. One of the first ones that I did, I made for a niece, and it was it was almost like an attic window, but the blocks were all different sizes and they had the shadows on them. And there was lots of blank space because white space was the buzzword back then.
Right.
But each of the blocks was made up of crazy fabric, all just chopped up and sewn together and then cut as a block. And the actual quilting on that one was the more important thing because that particular niece liked ancient keys. So of course I drew all kinds of ancient keys within the quilting and such. So the free motion quilting, I guess, puts me more into a modern vein. But I am a little bit particular about getting points to match. And I think that's the traditional part of me.
Yeah, I think so.
A little bit of both.
Yeah, well, variety is the spice of life, right? So I don't like to pigeonhole myself either. I like to try new things, whether it is a new traditional one or it's something very modern. And I have leaned towards the traditional because as far as I'm concerned, I'm still learning all of this. And when you do a traditional one with traditional blocks, you learn the basic styles and things. Okay, sorry about that. It's my alarm on my phone going off for some reason.
Well, it's probably 1 o'clock. It's time to start.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, actually. That's what
I have one on mine too.
Yeah. Okay. So, all right. So next question I have for you. Describe your sewing area. Do you have a separate
Oh,
sewing area
no.
or?
I used to own a house and I had the entire basement as my crafting studio,
Oh,
and all the sewing machines and everything was down there. I had accurate daylight lighting, the whole bit.
mm,
And then about 2.5 years ago, I downsized into a 2-bedroom apartment with my son. And so right now my craft room is my bedroom. At least I have the master bedroom, so there's a little
yeah.
more room. My sewing table is an IKEA table countertop spanned across 2 dressers. But I also have my industrial machine in the bay window of the living room, and grandma's machine is on a table in the living room. If I'm sewing a big project, I tend to put the machine on the kitchen table. So I'm waiting for my son to move out so I can get a studio back.
Ah, yeah. That
He's
would be
not in a
nice.
rush.
Yeah, I think that's everybody's dream though, to have a space where they can like design it and dedicate it to nothing but their sewing. I
And
just have
shut the
my
door.
dungeon.
And shut the
Yeah,
door if somebody comes over.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, want to hide it all. Okay, so what's your favorite tool or or technique?
Oh my.
Is there
My
something you
favorite
can't live
tool
without?
has to be my 6x24 quilting ruler.
Okay,
I
why is
use
that?
it for everything sewing, whether it's quilting or not, but I also use it in paper crafting and things like that to square things up. And I use that thing all the time. I have a few of them,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you gotta have, it's like seam rippers. You gotta be able to have one when you need it.
Oh yeah, exactly. A seam ripper in every room of the house.
Yep. And
Kind of
sometimes
thing.
two.
So do you have a technique, a quilting technique or a favorite block or something like that?
I really enjoy the free motion quilting.
Okay.
I get into my zone and I'm just buzzing along, doing a section at a time. And before I know it, 6 hours has gone by and I can't get out of the chair. But
Yeah.
it really changed things for me. Initially, I did have a frame and I put my Janome Horizon on the frame. So I had about 9 inches of throat space.
Right.
But I quickly found out that if you're doing a queen size quilt and it rolls up inside that throat space, by the time you get to the end, you can really only do like a 3 or 4 inch path.
Yeah.
And that wasn't cutting it for me. So I started free motion quilting, watched a lot of Leah Day's early videos and just jumped in and found my niche in there and loved it.
So are you still doing your free motion quilting on the frame or?
No, that's come and gone.
Okay.
I have nowhere to put a 10-foot frame anymore. But once I took up the free motion quilting and got really confident in it, it kind of sat like exercise equipment. It just kind of sat in the corner and never used it. So I found a buyer and sold it.
So you do everything on domestic machine?
I do.
Good for
Mind
you.
you, the Janome's a fair size.
Yeah. So which Janome do you have?
The one I did just sell my 15,000.
Yeah, you told me that.
But the 7,700, the Janome Horizon 7,700, which is just a sewing machine. It's not a embroidery machine at all.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's
set it down into a table so that I have a large flush surface.
Oh, that's nice.
Just
yeah, I have to set up tables around my machine. I have to move my machine out of where my sewing dungeon and put them out in my rec room on all these huge collapsible tables to spread everything out on. And you know, when I first got into quilting, I wanted a long arm, but I want a long arm because I'm into the gadgets and I like the fact that you could get a computer component on it. But then the price is one thing.
Yes.
And space, as you just said, space is another. And you know, I am slowly progressing with each quilt I do. I forced myself with the free motion quilting a little bit more. And as they say, practice makes perfect. So I just carry on with that. Although I have been looking at those sit down models too, but
Yeah, they're interesting.
yeah, but the price of one of those is not particularly cheap too, a lot less than a long arm, but I don't know. But
Well, I lucked
anyways,
out when I bought my long arm. I got it used through one of the stores that I go to. That the owner was affiliated with a guild that I was going to, and she mentioned that she had a used one, and
okay.
so I went that way.
Yeah, there's a long arm place out here where we live, Rules and Swirls, and they oftentimes put their I think they're APQS machines, and she'll put some of her ones that she uses in the shop up for sale.
Yep.
And there's nothing wrong with them, but I just don't have a place to put it.
Exactly.
So,
and it's not something that you can fold up and put away in a closet.
No, that's the thing. So, well, we can dream. Okay, so that takes me to, talking about this equipment. If you had all the money in the world, what one piece of equipment or whatever would you invest in?
Oh my gosh. Do people count?
Yes,
I'd invest in a housekeeper and a cook.
Yeah. That would be a good idea.
More time to suffer severely if I'm in a project.
That's actually a good idea, because that gives you more time to quilt and work on things. And I hate doing housework, but if I don't do it, who's going to do it? Kind of a thing. And I don't mind cooking, but luckily I have a husband that likes to cook, and he cooks most of the time now that he's retired too. So I don't mind that at all.
I don't mind cooking. However, I have a son who is an extremely fussy eater.
Oh.
So our repertoire consists of about 10 menus.
Yeah.
And it gets tiresome.
Well, there's a way to solve that problem. Kick them out. Yeah, then you can have a sewing room and eat whatever you want. All right, so for my next question, then let's see here, just looking at my notes. My next question is, have you ever belonged to a guild or an online group related to quilting or sewing or whatever? And I think you did belong to a guild because you mentioned that.
I did belong to a guild here in London, and it's a very large guild, about 200 people. So,
oh wow, that's big.
And I found it hard to get to be part of the group because there was the established people, and there are the new people. If you didn't fight your way in, you just kind of drifted away again. So I did try. I got on a committee for organizing the quilt show, and I thought I did an okay job, but it was less than fulfilling.
Yeah.
The day went off fantastic. We did a fantastic job as a group. The president, however, was a very critical lady, and she let all the air out of the balloon.
Yeah, I've been there. That's why I'm not in a guild anymore. Yes, you've heard me talk about that. Yes, and they still haunt me at times, but and know something. I mean, I am sure there are guilds out there that would just be a pleasure to belong to, but I have heard from more than several people horror stories about guilds, and it always seems to come down to, as you just said, there's the established group, and newcomers, you have to fight for a place. And that's not what it's in my way of thinking. I didn't join a guild to do that. I joined a guild because I had an interest in quilting. I thought I'd learn some other things and, meet up with some people that were quilting friends, but that didn't work.
Yeah. When I first joined, I thought I'd be going to learn how to quilt, but that particular guild, their focus more was on having guest speakers in. That's pretty much it. Having speakers in, doing the big show and tell and stuff like that. So I went for a few years, and then I took a couple of years off, and then I tried going back again. It was all still the same. So I haven't been back. But in the meantime, there was a very small group of about 12 people in Dorchester, which is just a small town outside of London. And they would get together once a week. And so and tell jokes and
Yeah.
goof off and just
Yeah.
basically encourage each other and share ideas and share techniques. And that was a lot more fun.
Yep, I get that. And that's what I'm looking for. I've joined a couple of groups online, which are more like that. And we do like Zoom kind of things together. Plus, I have my own group of craft and chat kind of a deal and things like that, which works out pretty good too. But I think when we get back to, if we ever get back to a normal, whatever that will be, I would really like to just be able to find some people in my local area, just maybe 3, 4, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I could accommodate them here at my house. So we could have a sew day.
Yeah.
I have an area that I can make up for that where there's plenty of room for the sewing machines and stuff. So that's in the back of my head that I'd like to try something like that. But no, I'm a little burned out about guilds. Okay.
Yeah.
Move on from that topic and let's go to what's your favorite store for supplies and materials? I know that up in the area you're in, in that area, there are lots of quilt stores.
There are some really nice stores. I think my favorite store to go and just look at absolutely everything is the Marsh store in Coldstream. And it's in an old house that I believe was a general store at one point back in the railroad days. And so the floors are all uneven and it's all little nooks and crannies, but they have absolutely everything. And the ladies that work there are amazing. And then there's a smaller store in Mount Bridges, which is a small town. And it's called So Creative. And actually that's who I bought the frame from. And again, the lady that owns the store is amazing. I can phone her up and ask her if she's got a certain something. And if she doesn't, she'll order it in. And the personal service is fantastic.
Yeah. And that, I think for me, that really makes a quilt store good in my mind is the staff, is how they treat you. Years ago, when I first got into scrapbooking, and I'm talking 20 years ago, and that used to be my chief thing that I did. And yeah, I think a lot of us are crossovers in between those groups.
Yeah.
But, I'd walk into a scrapbook store, a craft store when there were such things and lots of them around, and I'd get attitude because I was a man. And the first thing they'd say to me was, "Oh, you buying something for your wife?" Well, money talks, because when they saw how much I would buy, it was like, oh, yes, they couldn't do too little for me.
When are you coming back?
Yeah, I never got that attitude in a quilt store. Never. Well, that's not true. There's one quilt store north of me that they're a little cold, but I think they're a little cold to new people that aren't in the area. It's a small store. It's in a small town. Everybody knows everybody else. And so, you walk in through the saloon doors and the record goes scratches across kind of a thing. But they're getting used to me now because I've been there on more than one occasion. But regardless of that, any other place I've ever been to treated me just like anybody else in a quilt store. And the one I have down here, and you've heard me talk about it on the Idiot Quilter. I mean, those ladies that work in that store are, well, I call them friends. I really do. Of course, mind you, I provide the money for their paychecks too with the amount that I buy. But
you talked about Shirley quite a bit.
Oh yeah. But Shirley is excellent, and there's no two ways about it. But yeah, it's the personnel of the store that I think really makes it. So, okay, I'll keep those two in mind if I ever get up into the London area to check it out.
It's unfortunate that in the actual city of London, we've lost all our quilt stores.
Yeah.
There's one that has since come in that is mostly a needlework store, but she's also got fabrics kind of a thing.
Right.
But we used to have 3 or 4 specific quilt stores, and they've gone by the wayside.
Well, that happened out in this area too. There were about 3 stores right within 10 kilometers or less of each other. And now we're down to just one, and that's Shirley's store. I mean, good for her because she's got more of a market, but but it is sad that they went out, and that was all before COVID when all that happened. So
it's been years.
Yeah, so you can't blame that on COVID.
Even your basic Fabricland closed down one of the stores. And so we have one in the southwest end, and we have one in the northwest end. But if you're in the east end of the town of the city, there's nothing without driving. And we have a lens mill store, and I'm kind of right between one Fabland and one lens mills. So if I need thread, I've got the place to go to. But if I'm looking for quality quilting fabric, you have to go out of town.
Yeah, because I was going to say I've been to a lens mill in Toronto, and it doesn't impress me. I always feel like I need a shower after I've come out of there afterwards. So
you got it.
and Fabricland we call the F store. With that, and prices, like, give me a break.
Yeah,
you need to take out a small,
I dropped
loan.
a small fortune yesterday. They've had everything in the store 50% off during the curbside days,
right?
And now they're keeping it going till the end of June. So now that I got to go in and touch and feel the fabrics, I kind of I wanted to get some more vinyl for handbag making and such. And so I got interfacings and hardware and things like that. So I'm stocked up for a while.
Do you do a lot of online shopping, or do you stay away from that and stick to the stores?
I am starting to do a lot of online shopping. Especially for purse making, the hardware and such. My favorite Canadian source is Emmeline Bags in Alberta. She's got beautiful stuff. Fabrics, I haven't bought that much fabric online. I did start a couple of weeks ago on the auction site, and let's just say my visa knows about it. So we'll see. I haven't received it yet, but we'll see once it gets here. I may just end up on that.
I've had good luck with online stores. I mean, okay, you've got to know your brands. Like, if anything's a name brand, you've seen the name, you're probably okay. And
you're familiar with what their stuff is.
And color wise, I have found with only one time was I disappointed in a color that I picked out. And you figure there might be a color shift on your computer screen and kind of a thing, but only once. And that was really not a major problem, but it's the only time I had something that I was going, no, it looked better on the screen than when I got it. But I've had great luck. And as you know, on The Idiot Quilter, I've been reviewing all kinds of online ones, and I keep finding them. And it's Canadian ones that I want, because getting stuff from the States, it costs you an arm and a leg. It's just too much for me.
There's a store in St. Mary's called Hugolik.
Yes, I've been to it.
And Chantal is amazing too for online.
Yeah, I was into that store about before COVID, a couple of years ago, because every year about this time of the year into July, we go up to the Cambridge Waterloo area, and we spend about 3 days, and we travel around to all of the quilt stores in the area, and it's ka-ching, 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 ka-ching. And we went to that one in St. Mary's because they have a huge selection of K facet fabrics, and I love K facet.
Between Cafe and Liberty of London, I think that's most of her store.
So
she used to be in London.
Oh, and you moved out there. Okay.
Yeah, she moved out to St. Mary's. We have a shop hop that happens pretty much every year, and it does the rotation up through St. Mary's, through Stratford, Shakespeare, Kitchener, Waterloo, and then back home again. There's a nice store in Tillsonburg too, but they never make it onto that shop hop, so it's a special trip.
Well, we weren't able to do it last year, and it looks like we're not going to be able to do it this summer either, so it'll be another year yet. But but thank God for online shopping, I can say that. Okay, so who are your favorite experts or sources for information about your quilting, your sewing, anything?
It's changed over the years.
Right, it does.
Like I said, when I was learning free motion quilting, I was on Leah Day's site pretty much every day. She had a series that she was doing that was 365 new free motion quilting patterns in a year. Well, it didn't quite happen in a year, but she was posting new videos on how to do a certain pattern pretty much daily. And so I learned a lot through her. Now, of course, I grew up watching Nancy's Sewing with Nancy and things like that. I think the one that I enjoyed the most was Quilt in a Day.
Yeah.
Eleanor is hilarious.
Yeah.
Now, their shows have also changed a lot since AccuQuilt. They're kind of a promotion for AccuQuilt now.
Yeah.
And she's, of course, aging. So
Mm-hmm.
she's not crazy online anymore. But there's that and Missouri Star.
Mm-hmm.
I watch them pretty much every time they put a video up. I did have the luck or the opportunity to take a bus trip to Missouri Star once. And that's about 4 years ago now. But it was a fun trip. We stopped at stores all the way there. It took us 2.5 days to get there. And then we spent, I think, 3 days in Hamilton. And of course, at night, you'd have dinner shows and things like that. And we did have one, oh gosh, Jenny, she did a trunk show. She does one, I guess, once a week. And all who come to Hamilton, you make sure that you're there the day that she does her trunk show. And that was very interesting. But yeah, Quilt in a Day, Missouri Star. There's some influence from Bonnie Hunter. I have done a couple of her mystery quilts, but you know, you take, you learn, and you move on.
Yep, exactly. I mean, I watch Missouri Star Quilt all the time, Jordan Fabrics, actually all the other ones you mentioned too. At one point in time, I was an avid watcher of all of theirs as well. But you're right, you do move on. But Missouri Star Quilt Company, Hamilton, Missouri, that's on my bucket list. I want to go down there. And I'm going to take down a bundle of money. Well,
tell
take my
your
credit
bank
card.
You're going down there and not to freeze your Visa card because you're out of town.
Yeah. Because I know
I'll
just walk in the store and go, yeah, wrap the whole place. Thank you.
Pretty much. Except there's more than one store.
I know. That's the thing. So
every category of fabric has its own store. Yeah. And then they also have a man's den, they call it, for lack of a better word. And it's all lazy boy chairs and sports TV. So if you get tired of waiting for your partner or your spouse to shop, you can have somewhere to go.
So they go in there too. Do they serve beer?
I'm not sure.
They need to serve beer with that. That would definitely keep the husbands happy forever.
Yeah, the quilters would be happier because there'd be no pressure to finish.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah, and after they've had a few beers, you can go, did you buy? And I just bought a few things. Oh, that's okay, dear.
I had to laugh when you first arrive on the bus, then a concierge comes onto the bus and welcomes you and such. And the first thing they say is, we really appreciate if you cross on the crosswalks and not in between, because you have to keep in mind, this is the state highway going through this town. So please use the crosswalks.
Yeah, you don't want to become a wall ornament.
No.
Next to one of the quilts. All right, so where's that taking me to now? Oh yeah. Do you have any challenges or goals for the future in terms of projects you might like to do?
Oh my gosh.
Everything, yeah.
Yeah, maybe all the patterns that I have collected.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll do that one someday. Maybe someday should come.
I have a big box of them. Same thing. Yeah, I need to live to be 1,000 years old before I'll ever get through all those patterns.
Yeah.
But yep, that's the problem with this type of hobby, isn't it? I mean, fabric is pretty. So, and I love it when they ask me, so what are you going to do with this? I said, I have no idea. It's pretty.
I don't know. It's pretty.
I'll find something for it someday down there. So, and thus we have stashes.
Yes, we do.
Okay, so now moving out into the idea more that, and I do believe this with my whole heart, that quilters and paper crafters and everybody like that, I would rather use the word artist, because just because you may not have put something up in a museum for people to look at, or you've sold it and it's your livelihood, I still believe that anybody who does something as creative is an artist in their own right. So how would you describe yourself as an artist? Are you
It took me a long time to understand an artist, and that doing these things is art, because to me it was just stuff that you do. Okay. But when you get told often enough that you're an artist, sometimes you start to believe it. So as an artist, I like to try new things. I'll see, this year I learned how to do bobbin lace.
Oh, okay.
Saw it on a Facebook page or something, looked into it, thought, I should try that. So I tried it. I enjoyed it, learning process. I also found out that it's not going to be a long-standing thing in my life. The same with embroidery. I dove in. I thought I was going to love it. It didn't satisfy my need. So then I move on. Cross stitch is something that I would like to finish, things that I started. I have several back of the closet projects. I go get them about half done, and until you can actually see what the picture is, and then it's like, okay.
Yeah. I think we all have projects like that.
Yeah, I like to try new things. I learned to knit as a youngster, but my mom didn't like knitting because for her it was a household chore. You have to keep 7 brothers in socks, you knit. Yeah. So I knew how to just knit. I taught myself later as an adult how to knit nice patterns and make nicer things. Yeah. And the same with crocheting, the same with hand embroidery. It's something that, oh, that's kind of neat. Oh, maybe I should try that. So as an artist, I think I'm just adventurous.
And you want to know something? I think that's really the true definition of a true artist. Artists, you can't pigeonhole the creative process, in my opinion. Oh, no. You know, and so that's how you learn, you explore, you know, by trying different things and experimenting all the time. And sure, you're not going to like it all, but how do you know unless you don't? How do you know that if you don't try it? So that's my philosophy on things too. Exactly. And you know, so it's art. And so you make a failure. Well, is it a failure? No, you learn something from it. So that's a success. So yeah, but I really believe that we are all artists in our own right. Yeah, so exactly. My last question for you is, do you have any advice for anyone who may be getting started in quilting or sewing? Maybe something
eliminate the word can't from your vocabulary, because if you are not good at doing something one way, then you find another way of doing it. If sewing triangles causes you frustration, you sew a different shape. If sewing alone isn't your thing, get a group together. It's, yeah, definitely. And don't compare your first efforts to somebody else's, because they may have been doing something for years and years and years. Yeah. And if it's your first try, you have to look at it as your first try, not compare it to somebody else's. Yeah,
I think that's very important, because I think in the quilting world anyways, and I have found, and I just talked about this today on my Idiot Quilter episode, that it can be very competitive. You know, you see these quilt shows and you see beautiful quilts up there and you say to yourself, I could never do this, so why should I try? But that's not the way to look at it. I think what you're saying is, if it brings you joy, if you like doing it, then do it. Don't worry about comparing yourself to anyone else, or, you know, feeling that competition. You just do it. If it makes you feel good, do it. And if you don't like it, move on to something else you do like, or alter it so it is a pleasant experience. Exactly. I learned that too. You know, when I first got into quilting, I was all about, oh yeah, I've got to perfect this because I want to win a ribbon. Now, no, no, couldn't care less about that. You know, it's not going to solve world hunger if I win an award for a quilt. So I'm
Good
not going to worry about
perspective.
it. Yeah, exactly. I'm not finding a cure for cancer in this. I'm just having fun. And, you know, and I'm so glad that I have this now during this time of COVID, you know.
Oh,
I just
definitely.
pity the people that didn't have a hobby. They've got to be stuck to the ceiling, you know. But now,
I've got more
so
hobbies than I need.
well, that's my problem too. But never bored, never bored.
Exactly.
So just before I close off here, I would just like to ask you if there's anything else you'd like to say or comment on, or you know that we haven't covered.
I'm just really glad that you blog or vlog, I guess it is.
Vlog, yeah.
Um, I am so grateful for the online community, especially these last year and a half.
Mhm.
But the amount of knowledge that is out there just for the taking, like there's no reason that you can't learn something even like bob and lace that used to be taught from the grandmother to the child. Now you can watch a video on how to do it and rewind it 200 times until you get it. If you want to repair your snowblower, you can find it
Yeah,
online. There's
yeah.
everything online, and just try it.
Yeah, there's a library at your
Try it.
fingertips if you've got a computer, which is
Exactly.
amazing. You know, if you think back to when we were much younger and, you know, you want to look something up, you had to physically go to a library
Yeah,
to do that. Now it's right there on your computer.
exactly.
Okay, well, this has been great. Thank you so much for agreeing to do an interview with me. And I'm just going to say goodbye, but you stay on the line for a minute because I'm going to stop the recording. But
Oh, okay.
again, I just want to thank you for this.
You're welcome.
So much information here, as you said, but you've added to that wealth as well. So thank you once again for agreeing to this.